Let's dive into Venezuela, a nation famous for its breathtaking natural wonders, from the towering Angel Falls to lush rainforests and vibrant cities. But beyond its beauty, Venezuela is also home to some of the largest oil reserves in the world, making it a key player in the global energy market. This wealth, however, has often been a double-edged sword, fueling both prosperity and deep-rooted challenges. Politically, Venezuela is a whirlwind. Imagine the chaos of a toddler's birthday party but with much higher stakes. Over the past decade, the country has been rocked by protests, power struggles, and a government that's often at odds with its own people. The streets of Caracas have seen everything from passionate demonstrations to heated debates in parliament, all reflecting a nation searching for stability. The relationship between the US and Venezuela? Think of two people trapped in an elevator who can barely stand each other. Years of diplomatic tension, sanctions, and public spats have left both sides wary and quick to react. Every move is watched closely, and even the smallest gesture can spark international headlines. Recently, rumors and whispers of a possible US military intervention have swept through the country, stoking widespread anxiety among ordinary Venezuelans. People are glued to their TVs and phones, trying to make sense of the latest developments, while the presence of military vehicles on alert only adds to the tension. This heightened tension is the result of a complex mix: disputed elections that many claim were unfair, international accusations of human rights abuses, and a government that's often accused of silencing dissent. The world is watching as officials make statements and ballots are counted, with the legitimacy of the process constantly under scrutiny. Meanwhile, tough talk and military maneuvers ripple across the Caribbean. Naval ships patrol the waters, politicians deliver fiery speeches, and press conferences are held against a backdrop of uncertainty. The region is on edge, with every action scrutinized for signs of escalation. The stakes couldn't be higher, not just for Venezuela, but for all of Latin America. A military conflict here could send shockwaves throughout the region, destabilizing economies, displacing people, and drawing in neighboring countries. Leaders are meeting, borders are being watched, and citizens everywhere are holding their breath. In a world full of headlines and hot takes, it's more important than ever to cut through the noise. To truly understand what's happening in Venezuela, we need to look beyond the surface, examine the facts, and listen to the voices of those living through these turbulent times. The saga intensified in July 2024 with Venezuela's presidential election, meant to resolve political stalemate. Incumbent Nicolas Maduro faced opposition from Edmundo Gonzalez, sparking hopes for change. However, chaos ensued post-election, with Maduro declared the winner amidst fraud accusations. Venezuela found itself with two claimants to the presidency, plunging the nation into uncertainty. Gonzalez fled to Spain, while the government cracked down on opponents, solidifying Maduro's grip. This power struggle left a significant portion of the population and the world questioning the government's legitimacy. The crisis remains unresolved, with deep divisions persisting. In the wake of Venezuela's disputed election, the United States responded swiftly and decisively. The U.S. government announced the reinstatement of sweeping economic sanctions on Venezuela, targeting the country's vital oil industry and key financial sectors. These measures were designed to send a clear message to President Nicolas Maduro's administration, signaling that the international community would not stand by in the face of what it viewed as a deeply flawed electoral process. The sanctions specifically aimed to choke off the Maduro government's primary source of revenue, oil exports, without resorting to direct military intervention. By restricting Venezuela's ability to sell oil on the global market, the U.S. hoped to pressure Maduro into negotiating with the opposition and restoring democratic norms. In a bold diplomatic move, the U.S. also formally recognized opposition leader Gonzalez as the legitimate president of Venezuela. This recognition was echoed by several other Western nations, further isolating Maduro and lending international legitimacy to the opposition's cause. The move was intended to empower the opposition and encourage a peaceful transition of power. Meanwhile, the U.S. Department of Justice escalated legal pressure by indicting Maduro and several of his top officials on charges of narco-terrorism and corruption. The DOJ even offered a multi-million-dollar reward for information leading to Maduro's arrest, a rare step that underscored the seriousness of the allegations. These legal actions painted Maduro not just as a political adversary, but as an international criminal, The charges and the bounty heightened tensions, making diplomatic resolution even more challenging and fueling Maduro's claims of foreign persecution. For many Venezuelans, these moves were viewed through the lens of history. The United States has a long and complicated record of intervention in Latin American affairs, from covert operations to open support for regime change. This legacy has left deep scars and fostered a sense of suspicion and resentment among segments of the Venezuelan population. Reports of CIA involvement and alleged coup plots only added fuel to the fire. Rumors and leaked documents suggested that the U.S. was willing to go to great lengths to unseat Maduro, further eroding trust and complicating any potential dialogue between the two nations. The combination of reimposed sanctions, the refusal to recognize Maduro's presidency, and the shadow of past covert operations has left Venezuela feeling besieged on multiple fronts. The government has responded with increased security measures and anti-U.S. rhetoric, while opposition groups continue to rally for change. The U.S. strategy is clear: to isolate and weaken Maduro's regime through a combination of economic pressure and diplomatic isolation. By rallying international support and leveraging sanctions, the U.S. hopes to force a political opening in Venezuela. However, this approach is not without controversy. Critics argue that sanctions often hurt ordinary Venezuelans the most, leading to shortages of food, medicine, and other essentials. Humanitarian organizations have warned that the economic crisis is deepening, with millions struggling to meet basic needs. As the standoff continues, the streets of Caracas remain tense. Security forces patrol the capital, protesters demand change, and the nation is deeply divided. Both the government and the opposition appear entrenched, unwilling to back down. Around the world, the international community watches closely, weighing the risks and consequences of intervention. The crisis in Venezuela has become a test of global diplomacy, with the fate of millions hanging in the balance. In September 2024, the U.S. seized President Maduro's private jet, escalating tensions. The Dassault Falcon 900EX, allegedly smuggled into Venezuela, was impounded in the Dominican Republic. This high-profile move targeted Maduro's prestige and assets. The U.S. justified the seizure as a legal action against an asset linked to illegal activities. The Dominican Republic complied with legal obligations, but the act was seen as a political escalation. In the charged U.S.-Venezuela relations, every action carries political weight. From Caracas, Venezuela's government sees itself as a victim of U.S. imperialism. Sanctions are viewed as an economic blockade, not a response to democracy issues. The government claims a vast conspiracy to destabilize and assassinate Maduro. Arrests of foreigners and seized rifles are presented as proof of U.S. aggression. The jet seizure is framed as piracy, reinforcing anti-imperialist sentiment. This narrative rallies Maduro's base against a common enemy, painting the U.S. as a bully. However, these claims require skepticism, as the truth is complex. The U.S. firmly denies plans for a military attack on Venezuela. State Department officials dismiss accusations of coup plots as propaganda. The U.S. emphasizes diplomacy and economic pressure, not military force. Sanctions are a response to Maduro's failure to hold free elections. The jet seizure is seen as a law enforcement action against illicit assets. However, past admissions by officials like John Bolton create a credibility gap. These admissions fuel Maduro's narrative and sow doubt. The shadow of past policies complicates current denials. The situation remains tense, with both sides entrenched in their positions. Beyond the headlines and political drama, Venezuela is gripped by a humanitarian crisis that cuts far deeper than any debate in parliament or speech on television. For millions of Venezuelans, daily life is a struggle for survival, marked by uncertainty and hardship. The crisis has seeped into every aspect of society, affecting families, children, and the elderly alike. Hyperinflation has rendered salaries almost worthless, while food and medicine have become scarce luxuries. Supermarket shelves are often bare, and even basic necessities like clean water and electricity are unreliable. Hospitals struggle to function without supplies, and many patients go untreated. The collapse of essential services has left ordinary people facing impossible choices every day. In search of safety and opportunity, over 7.7 million Venezuelans have left their homeland, making this one of the largest displacement crises in the world today. Families are separated, and many embark on dangerous journeys across borders, carrying only what they can hold. The exodus has strained neighboring countries and created new challenges for the region. The United States insists that its sanctions are aimed at pressuring the Maduro regime, but critics argue that these measures have only deepened the suffering of ordinary Venezuelans. Sanctions have complicated access to food, medicine, and international aid, making recovery even more difficult for those most in need. As the crisis drags on, a bitter blame game unfolds between the US government and Maduro's administration. Each side points fingers, accusing the other of worsening the situation. Meanwhile, the people of Venezuela are caught in the crossfire, their voices often drowned out by political rhetoric. The humanitarian toll is staggering. Families are forced to live in makeshift shelters, children go to bed hungry, and parents struggle to provide even the basics. Stories of loss and resilience echo across the country as communities band together to survive in the face of adversity. Around the world, the international community debates the true impact of sanctions and the best path forward. Aid organizations and world leaders grapple with how to help, while news outlets report on the growing crisis and its far-reaching consequences. On the ground, the situation remains dire. Streets that were once bustling with life now stand empty, and hope is in short supply. For many, the future is uncertain, and a resolution seems distant. In the midst of political turmoil, the focus must shift to alleviating human suffering. Aid workers, doctors, and volunteers continue their efforts, determined to bring relief and restore dignity to those affected by this ongoing crisis. Is a U.S. military attack on Venezuela imminent? Public evidence suggests no. No troop movements or naval blockades indicate an invasion. The U.S. strategy is economic and diplomatic pressure, not military intervention. Sanctions aim to cut off Maduro's funds, while legal actions delegitimize leaders. The Venezuelan government uses invasion threats to rally support and justify repression. The situation is volatile, with the risk of miscalculation leading to conflict. A small incident could escalate tensions, making the situation precarious. The focus remains on isolating and weakening Maduro's regime through non-military means. The international community watches closely as the crisis unfolds. The future likely holds a continuation of the tense standoff. The U.S. will maintain pressure through sanctions, hoping for regime change. Maduro will defy the U.S., strengthening ties with Russia and China. The international community's stance and internal dynamics in Venezuela are key. A change in U.S. administration could shift policy towards confrontation or engagement. The crisis affects regional stability and the fate of millions of Venezuelans. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for informed global citizenship. Stay informed, think critically, and remember the human impact of the crisis. The story of U.S. and Venezuela is ongoing with significant consequences ahead.